Hey, Schmidlifers. Welcome to the Midlife Schmidlife podcast. I have a quick question for you. When was the last time you learned to do something new? And I don't mean like a trivia fact, like something that I learned this past weekend, which was that like fingerprints, dolphins all have different dorsal fins. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? But that's not what I'm talking about. I mean doing something for the very first time, like taking a class, learning a new skill or hobby, something that takes you out of your comfort zone and puts you back in the beginner's mindset. I have a theory about this, and I'm also going to share a very telling story of myself as well. My theory is that our confidence plummets when we quit actively learning. Now, we may feel confidence in what we know. So if you are in your career for 20 years, you'd be pretty confident there, right? Sadly, though, that becomes such a comfort zone that taking steps outside of our usual to learn something new creates a lot of discomfort. And we may even develop a different idea of who we think we are because of that. If you are only confident in what you know and you stay in your comfort zone to be comfortable, it's pretty easy to have a distorted view of yourself. So here's my story. I'm a very creative person, and I pick up on creative things pretty quickly. I've taken classes in silversmithing, wire wrapping, beading, watercolors, so many more. I really love to learn new things. Now, a couple years ago, I was really loving this new trend of all the hand lettering that I was seeing. And so I convinced a friend of mine to take a hand lettering class with me. Now, it had been a while since I had taken any classes, but in my own confident way, I was certain I'd pick this up pretty easily, just as I had done the other creative pursuits. But I just want to share with you, that was a big nope. I was horrible. And I mean, not even in a beginner mindset, I'm learning. It was bad. And I sat there and realized that after just a couple tries, I was ready to quit. Now, remember, this is me, the confidence coach. I was ready to lay down my brush tip pen and say I was done. I sat there and I was really wrestling with my own mindset, the stories I was telling myself, the discomfort I was feeling. I just really couldn't believe that I was in this place. I couldn't believe that my confidence was that low. And as adults, we usually have so much going on that we forget to learn new things. Just ask yourself, when was the last time that you took a new way home or tried a new restaurant or even a new type of food? Never tried Thai food? Why is that? When was the last time you learned a new skill, attempted a new hobby, shopped at a different store even, read a different genre of book, or listened to a different style of music? As adults, we can get pretty closed off to new experiences and opportunities around us. We then begin believing that we can't, and in reality, it's that we won't. And this is really funny when you think about it too, right? Because most of us as children, each year, we had a new classroom, a new teacher, a new group of kids, new subjects. And if you're a parent, you expected your kids to do well in these changing situations year after year. And yet here we are, stuck in our routines. That brings me to today's guest, Diane Diaz. Among the many interesting things you will learn about her, and she is so fun and so full of energy, one that is truly fascinating to me is that she signed up for a sprint distance, which is a very short triathlon, and she didn't know how to swim. So she and her friend just said, okay, fine, we'll take lessons. Diane will share how that push to learn something new and a very telling question that was asked by some unexpected person right there when they were signing up. It has really stuck with her to this day. And I'm going to be honest, when she shared that story with me, it's really stuck with me too. I haven't picked up my brush tip pen yet but it has had me consider when I am going to step back in to that beginner's mindset and try brush lettering again. Be sure to head over to the episode notes in your podcast app to connect with Diane. You can also go to the show notes at midlifeschmidlife.com. And just wanted to let you know that I've moved the podcast updates on Instagram back to my account at Liz Applegate. It was just too difficult to be on the podcast profile and then hop over to my profile and what was I going to share where. And I had, it just got to be too much. So I've just brought it all back over to Liz Applegate. That's me. So be sure to go over and connect with me on Instagram. For this next episode in the How They Got Started series, let's go over and meet Diane. Today, my guest is Diane Diaz. She is a speaking coach and personal brand strategist who loves working with women to help them find their unique voice and build their personal brand and thought leadership through speaking. Nothing makes her happier than seeing other women step into their power, tell their stories, and make a bigger impact. She loves seeing women's confidence and seeing more and more women move into positions of power and influence in our world and companies, on boards, and in political office. More women in positions of influence and power, please. I love that you included that.
Yes.
Welcome, Diane. I'm so glad to finally have you on the show.
I know. I'm so happy to be here, Liz. Thank you.
We've been connected for several years.
Yes.
And I think you reached out to me when I had first started Midlife Schmidlife.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And the exciting thing now is we only live about an hour from each other now.
I know.
So
and we almost met up.
Almost met. We will do that one of these days.
Yes, we will. We absolutely will.
Yeah. We'll take photos and share.
Yes, we'll prove that it happened.
Exactly. I know that you shared with me that in your 40s, like things really started changing for you. And since we're talking about how they got started, I think we're just going to dive into the 40s.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's such a time of change for many women.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you said that at age 42, you got laid off from your corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
So was that kind of like the kickoff of the domino effect?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So I had gotten my degree in marketing and then worked in marketing for a while. Then I went back to school and got my master's. So I was in my 30s when I did that. And then I was working for a land development company as a marketing director, and I liked it. Mm-hmm. It was a very challenging job in that, as anybody who's worked in corporate knows, it can really take from you. Of course, I learned a lot, but
Sure.
Of course, now when I look back on it, it does take a lot from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you're in those roles, I was on all the time. I was 24/7 answering emails and bringing work home with me and just constantly working. And it was a lot. It took a toll on me, I feel, physically from a health standpoint. And just, it was a lot. And then the wonderful housing market imploded.
Right.
And I think I was at the point in that job where I was thinking, I think I need to do something else, but I was fearful about leaving it because I was making good money. Mm-hmm. I was married at the time, had a house, with a mortgage and all those things. Mm-hmm. And also frankly bought into the capitalist, what bill of goods were sold, that you've got to buy the nicer house, buy the nicer car, buy the nicer purses, buy the nicer shoes, and get all the things. And I was reaching this point where I was realizing, and my husband at the time was an attorney, so he made good money. I made good money. And so we had all the things and they weren't making me happy. And I could not figure out why I was not. I did all the things I was supposed to do. And then I'm not happy. And my job was killing me. Mm-hmm. So I think getting laid off was actually a blessing.
Right.
Because I don't think I would have left had I not gotten laid off. And then when I got laid off, I decided I'm going to look for a job that fulfills me instead of a job that fills up my bank account. Like, I need to obviously earn a living, and I was still married at the time, but I'd rather do something I love and make a little less money. I'm fine with that. And so I had always wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't want to go back and get my PhD. And so when I ran across this job posting for teaching at a university and you just needed to have a master's degree, Like,
Yeah.
oh, and it was teaching a class in branding that I was doing that in my job. I'm like, I could teach this class all day long. It sounds
Right.
fascinating. So
Yeah.
I did end up getting the job. And that's where I started to realize that, oh, a job can actually fulfill you.
Oh,
Imagine if you loved what
Imagine.
you did. Imagine that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where I started to realize that, you know, sometimes we have to make hard choices to make ourselves happy. There's nothing negative to say about my ex-husband whatsoever. Wonderful guy. But I got married at 24. I had lived at home the whole time before I got married. So I went from living with my parents to living with my husband. And I grew up in domestic violence and was very anxiety ridden and everything. And so I never got to take care of myself. And then I think I just reached a point where I said, okay, these things aren't making me happy. I'm married and not even really sure why. And so I just was having this like an identity crisis, an awakening of there's a whole big world of experiences. I, unfortunately, after almost 20 years of marriage, ended it. And then, so I was still working at teaching, which I loved. And then after about, I don't know, probably after about being there about 8 years or so, I decided, because people around me at this job all not only taught, but they also had their own side gigs or businesses that they also ran in the school where I teach likes for you to do that. So I said, oh, I wonder if I could do that. I mean, and what actually kicked it off was I did a speaking engagement that somebody asked me to do on a fluke. Hey, could you come talk to this group about personal branding? I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, if I talk to them, I wonder if somebody's going to want me to do that work. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should build a website. Oh, maybe I should start a company. So I like to say I accidentally started my business.
Yeah, it happens.
Whoops the daisy. I have a business.
Here we are.
I know.
Yeah.
And so that it just made me start to realize that there's so many more layers to me. And this is like at that age, you start to come into your own and you start to realize you can really make your own choices, and you don't have to do what society tells you to do. You don't have to do what's expected of you. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You get to choose.
Absolutely. And so that's how that unfolded, going from corporate. And I think even though corporate was really hard on me, and really, I'm not the type of person that likes to be in an environment where I don't mind network and stuff. I don't like having to impress someone at the top because they're at the top and I like impress them. I'll do a good job, but if I have to do all the brown nosing, it's not for me.
No, I agree.
Not for me.
I didn't fit well with the corporate world for that very reason.
No. And micromanaging of me. And so I felt like I was in that 40s, I was finding my groove of who I really am.
Exactly.
And who I really want to be and what I really care about, which is not, and no offense to anybody who wants to have a nice car, nice house and all that. That's great. It just doesn't fulfill me. You know, I need to have a safe place to live and have a car that runs, but I don't need fancy things. It doesn't do anything for me. And it's funny because I grew up somewhat on the poor side. So I thought those things would make me happy. And then I got all those things and realized that they don't do it.
And I think that's an important lesson. I feel like all of us go through that in one way or another.
Absolutely.
It could be like, oh, when I get married, I know that I'll be happy. There's so many instances of that. When I get the top paying job, I'll be happy.
Or the title or the whatever.
Any of that. When I get the fancy car, there's so many times I think in our life when we're looking externally for that happiness. And we really have to go through that to realize that's an internal job.
Totally. Yes. And that's a good point that you really have to go through it because there's no amount of anybody telling you.
No.
You literally just have to move through it.
Yeah. If I were to say to you back then, Diane, you don't need that fancy, you don't need that purse or those nice shoes or that.
I would not listen.
You would have been like, girl, I do too.
And I deserve them. And I'm getting them. Yes,
that's right.
Yep. Oh, yes.
So yeah, those are hard lessons. And I feel that like we started off talking about the 40s just being, it was funny because before we hit record, what did you say? The 40s are a shit show or something like that.
A shit show for sure. Yes.
That's what it feels like for sure. Just midlife in general. But I do feel that that's when things hit for me. I felt like I came into my own in my 40s. It's like I I don't know, searching for so many things, searching for my voice, which is amazing that you're a brand.
Oh, yeah. That's
strategist. And I love helping my clients do that as well in a different way. I think you just take less crap. You just realize that you have opinions, you can stand up for yourself. I just feel like for me, though, at least that's how it was for me in the 40s, like that just started coming together. And it was honestly, the start of that was realizing that my first marriage was not working and being able to speak into that. Yeah. And so it is an interesting thing how things unfold in any way, whether it's a new job or leaving things behind. Yeah, things happen. So I also know and I remember when you did this is you competed in the Florida Ironman triathlon at age 47.
I did? Oh, no. When you say that, I think that was me.
Yeah,
no, I did. You. But also I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did.
No, it's so funny because it goes along with this idea of discovering who you actually are, because it's just such a juxtaposition because I grew up very shy. I'm the youngest of, there's two. I have a sister who's 2 years older. I was the youngest. My father was an abusive alcoholic. My mother was daughter of Italian immigrants. And so there was a lot of trauma actually, and also a lot of dysfunction, clearly. And I was very timid and I was very much a girly girl. I didn't like to sweat or, any of those things. And I was not athletic in any way, shape or form. And I always, as I got older and I was like a teenager and a young adult, I did do like aerobics because the big aerobics craze. And I was interested in staying fit, but I wasn't athletic. My sister had to teach me. I remember I was in elementary school or middle school and during PE, they picked teams. They never picked me because I was little. I'm only 5 feet tall. So I was always the tiniest and they never wanted me on their team. And I wasn't athletic. And I was up at bat and the kids were screaming at me, choke up on the bat. I didn't know what that meant. So I came home, I was crying. My sister is like, it means just put your hands up. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. I was so embarrassed. But as I got older, I got more and more interested in physical pursuits. And then a friend of mine said, let's run a 5K together. I was like, girl, I don't run unless someone's chasing me with a knife. So she's like, no, it'll be fine. I'll do it with you. And she was already running. So we did that. And she's like, how'd you like it? I said, I hated it. Yeah. It was awful. But there was something that happens to you when you accomplish something like even a 5K is your brain changes. You're like, wait, I did that. I wonder what else I can do. Exactly. And so then she had found a flyer for this, what they call a sprint distance a very short distance triathlon. And it was women only, and it was very friendly. And I'll never forget the woman who was leading it was a multi-Ironman finisher. And her name was Sally Edwards. I will never forget this. We went to the information session. She was there and she said it was sponsored by Danskin, the dancewear company.
Right.
And I'll never forget because I said to my girlfriend, we cannot swim. Neither one of us can swim. I was 37 years old.
Oh,
I did not know how to swim at all. Like I could dog paddle, but that was like, I could not propel myself forward. I would just swim downhill. Right. So my friend said, that's fine. We'll take lessons. I'm like, okay. So we went to the information session and this woman says, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Oh,
and I thought, damn it. I can't think of a time that I did something. I don't even remember a time. And that's what made me just even try to do it. And so we took swim lessons and I was terrible at it. And I did the triathlon and I swam the whole swim, it was only a quarter mile, which is nothing. I swam it like breaststroke.
It's something when you
in a lake.
Yes.
There's a big difference between swimming in a pool and swimming in a lake.
Yes.
And I did not realize that. So I swam the whole thing, gasping for air with my face out of the water. And it was horrifying. I was terrified. And so I think I did a couple more of those. I don't know why, but I did them probably because my friend was doing them and they went terribly. And then whenever you hang around with anybody doing triathlons, invariably Ironman comes up. And I don't know, it like implants in your brain. And of course I thought I could never do that. And then I remember I did the next distance is Olympic distance. I did that thinking I couldn't do it, but I did it.
But you did it.
Yeah. And then somehow got wrangled into doing a half Ironman. And I thought, I can't do that. But you know what? I did it.
Yeah.
And then I did so I learned to swim at the age of 37. Over the course of 10 years, I did 6 half Ironman distance races.
Wow.
And then I said to myself, I did 5. And then I said to myself, I think I might be ready to attempt an Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
So then I went and volunteered at the Florida Ironman because that's how you can get in line to register and get one because it sells out immediately.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I did that. I registered and I'm like, oh no, I guess I'm doing this. So then I did another half as training.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the Florida Ironman in November 2013. And I'll never forget. I got up in that morning. There had been a storm that came through. I stood on the shore this is in Panama City, Florida. So it's in the Gulf, which is ordinarily very calm.
Yeah.
Except when a storm comes through. So the water was like a washing machine. And I thought, I'm not getting in that. I'm not getting in that. I am not getting in that. But I had trained for a year with a coach. So I had to do it. And I'm telling you, Liz, when I tell you it was the most rough swim I've ever done in my life. However, it was the most calm and zen I've ever felt doing anything ever. Wow. And I am not a swimmer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm short. If you're short with short arms, you're not fast. And I'm small. And in this race, you go into the water with 2,500 other people,
right? Most
of whom and there's not deliberate punching, but like they're swimming. So they will punch you in the head, catch your arm, you'll go under.
Yeah.
I was calm. I don't even know what happened to me. So I swam 2.4 miles in the ocean. And when I came out of that swim, I didn't even care if I finished the rest of the race. I just wanted to say to people, do you know what I just did?
Yeah.
Do you know I only learned to swim 10 years ago? And I just swam 2.4 miles. Does anybody realize this? I was so excited.
That is so exciting. Yeah. That is so exciting.
Yeah. And
wow.
And that's the kind of thing that I think, and why I think when you try something new that you've never done before, it changes who you are. It changes how you look at what you're capable of doing. Because in a million years, if you had told me that when I was 47 years old, I would swim 2.4 miles, ride my bike 112 miles, and then run a marathon, which took me 16 hours, I would have said, you're insane. I will not do that.
Yeah. I think at any age, I would have said that.
Yes.
Let alone 47.
I know I would never have thought, but it's funny how when you push yourself to do new things, what you think is possible for yourself changes and grows. And so it's through the doing new things that you're able to do new things.
Yeah. Very true. And it's actually through doing the new things that your confidence grows, right?
Yes.
Like, because until you do that thing, you don't think you can do other things. It's just
exactly.
That's really the only way confidence grows.
Absolutely.
Getting outside that comfort zone.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. What do you think the Zen part of the swimming, where do you think that came from?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
So I have generalized anxiety disorder and from childhood trauma. And when I was younger, it was very challenging for me because I would work myself into a tizzy with just anxiety about literally any decision, any little thing I had to do, anything that scared me, anything. But the more things I've done in my life, the more I was able to develop my own. I never had seen a therapist as a younger person, but as I got older, I did go to therapy after my mom died. And so I was able to just develop some coping mechanisms and techniques that are much more healthy than going into a tizzy.
Yeah.
But I would do this dialogue in my head, and I would do this thing before any swim in the ocean or a lake for a triathlon, where I would talk to myself and have a little dialogue running in my head. That would be something like, when you're swimming in the ocean or in a lake, the fear is obviously that you're going to drown. But I'd never drowned before. I had swam in a lake and didn't drown. And then I'd swam a lake again and didn't drown. And I'd go to training swims here locally in a lake, didn't drown. So then I would just tell myself, well, you've never drowned before. And then I would say to myself, it would take me the first 5 minutes of the swim to convince myself that I can actually do it. Right. But while I'm swimming, I'm just saying, okay, you've never drowned before. Also, there's lifeguards. Also, they have a liability. They're not going to let you drown. That's the last thing they want. So I would just talk myself through it. So on the morning of that swim, actually, leading up to it, I actually wrote on my bathroom mirror with eyeliner.
Yeah.
I left it there for probably 2 or 3 months. And it said to myself, you're a good swimmer, you're a strong swimmer, and you can do this.
Yeah.
And I saw it every day for 2 or 3 months. And so on that morning when I got up, I just stood on the beach, and I usually jump up and down to get the energy out and everything. But I just kept talking to myself, saying, you know what? They're not going to let you drown. In fact, that race, they had Navy SEALs in the water stationed at different points. Navy SEALs aren't going to let you drown.
Exactly.
They're not. And I just kept telling myself that. And so the swim started, and I said, oh, you got punched in the arm. It's fine. You're not going to drown. And if you feel bad, just take a break and turn on your back. And so I do this little self-talk. And so I think seeing that on my mirror for 2 to 3 months, it implants in your mind that you actually can do it. And then on that morning, I just had that talk with myself that I can do this. I have done it before. So why can't I do it now?
Right. Yeah. The mind, the brain is an amazing, more and more neurosciences are coming out and discoveries. And I just love reading articles about basically the same thing that you're talking about. I don't know if you've read this article about, I think it was basketball. And they did this, I don't want to call it an experiment, but it was an experiment. They took like a group of 10 basketball players. And I don't remember the numbers. Correct me if it could have been just 2.
Matter.
I have no idea.
It's okay.
They took a group of basketball players and they took them physically out to practice from the free throw line. So to practice their free throw shots. The other group just was to visualize it.
Yes.
Did you hear that story?
I've heard similar ones with weightlifting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then when they counted how many the people that physically practiced and how many mentally practiced, it was less for the mentally practiced, but it was by like 1 or 2. Right. So, instead of hitting 99 shots, they hit 97. That just shows how powerful our mind is, and how I love that you're sharing how you very easily could have gone down the other path. It very easily could have been like, I'm not a good swimmer. I can't do this. Nope. I'm not going to do this. Let fear take over. And you took over the fear. Fear was still there.
Yes.
But you were able to work with it and move past it.
Yeah. And I have found that I've used a similar technique in other situations. For example, I had my first MRI years ago. They ask you if you're claustrophobic. I'm like, no, I get in there.
Oh gosh.
It was awful. I'm like, I had a terrible panic attack. And I've had many MRIs, and I would always have a panic attack, but I started using that same method and so this last MRI I had done, I did all my little techniques that I always tell the person doing the MRI, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm going to cry. You're going to have to take me out, let me cry, put me back in. It'll be fine. But I go in and I just started talking to myself and telling myself the positive self-talk. And it's just amazing how it changes the way your body reacts to a stressor.
Yeah.
Your brain is really. And just another example of this, I don't know if you've read these books by Dr. John Sarno about back pain.
I haven't read those.
Oh, it's fascinating. So I have a herniated disc, and I do legitimately have that. It's been diagnosed on an MRI. However, what I do know is that when your brain focuses on pains, they are worse.
Right.
And they are more prolonged. And so I've been reading, his whole premise is this idea of a tension syndrome in your body where, yes, you can have a herniated disc, but many people have it and don't even know it. But once, like, someone can have it and not know it, and once they're diagnosed with it, then they start having pain. Brain is what's causing it. And so, of course, he goes into much more explanation about like where that comes from. But I just love anything around that idea of what your brain can make you feel. Your brain is even subconsciously controlling things and controlling how you feel, and you don't even realize it.
Exactly. Right. There's so much of our brain that's in process without us even realize. I think the majority, like 80%.
Yes, absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yes, it's crazy. Yeah.
So it's super fascinating. And I really like that your story is a great example of that.
Yes, it's all. Yeah. And that's not to say that I don't have meltdowns from time to time.
Sure.
I do.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm a crying heap on the floor, but I think to the extent that you can realize that your brain can change how you manage stress or how you even physically feel, you can at least try to tap into that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Before we move off this, have you competed anymore after this, or
Oh my gosh,
was it sort of like, I'm done? I proved it to myself.
Once I did that, it's so funny. I thought I wanted to keep doing those things. And then I took a little bit, I think I took like maybe a year off. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do another half. So I did another half. And then I said, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it. And also because riding your bike on the road, especially here in Orlando, is extremely dangerous.
Very.
And I have had 2 bike crashes, not with cars, but just in general. And I'm like, am I pressing my luck here? I think I've taken it as far as I should. So I'm done. Yeah,
right.
So
but
I hung that up.
Yeah. Being able to consciously decide that too is a good decision.
Absolutely. Yes. It was my choice. So right. No more of those.
So I remember when you started your business. Can you tell me about that? So you were working at this job that you realized, this is really fulfilling. So was this the same business that you had given the talk? And then, so it had grown from there.
Yes. Yes. So I still teach at the university. And so I gave that talk. And then of course, I had created like a little website on Wix. And then, a couple of people said, I would love for you to help me with my personal. Great. So then there I did. I accidentally started my business. Yeah. And I did that for a few years. And then meanwhile, because remember, I'm at this university surrounded by coworkers who all have businesses of some sort, because I teach in a digital marketing program. So one of my coworkers and friends, Carol Cox, who owns Speaking Your Brand, and she had started her business slightly before I started mine. I did personal brand strategy, worked on people's LinkedIn profiles and things like that. Did a lot of speaking. And then I had hired Carol to help me create. I did my first talk, but I was like, I think it could be better. So I hired Carol to help me make it better. And I just loved her process so much.
Yeah.
And so then she said to me, we've known each other for a long time. She started teaching at the university on the same day I did. So we've known each other for a very long time. So she said to me, hey, would you want to just take some of my clients and just like on a 1099 basis, like work with some clients? You use the format, you love it. So I could train you. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I did that, loved it. And then after a while, she said, I want you to start taking on more clients. And I said, I have 3 jobs. Like I teach, I have my business, I have your business. And I'm like, I'm not sure how I would make that work. So she was honest. And she said, let me just tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you close your business and you just be my employee and you still teach, but then close your business. So I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? Yes, because owning a business is hard. And although I loved it, I loved doing the client work. What I didn't love was having to do the bookkeeping and having to do the
business part.
all the like back end administrative stuff. And that stuff is very time consuming and some people enjoy it. I didn't.
Right.
So I thought this is very appealing. I could do the client work, which is what I love teaching, whether it be students or clients. I love teaching. I could really do what I love. And Carol and I do talk about strategy and things like that, but she's doing all the businessy stuff. And of course I'm speaking on behalf of the company and bringing clients and all that, but I get to do what I love.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great win-win situation.
Yes.
Honestly. Yeah.
Yes. And when you get to work with someone who I've known Carol for 13 years and I have always admired her. And I've always said, and I will stick to this till the day I die, that she is the smartest person that I know.
Yeah.
And I just love being surrounded by smart people who are not just smart in a book sense, but like knowledgeable about things in the world, like politics. And she's just very smart.
Yeah.
She's my go-to for questions about politics.
Yeah. It's good to have a friend like that.
Yeah.
One that you trust. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So
for sure.
Getting to work with her is just such a joy. And it's just been such a pleasure. So.
Yeah. So are you still doing that now?
Yeah. So I still teach at the university and I'm a speaking coach with Speaking Your Brand. So I do both. And it's good because they're not wholly different from one another, the 2 jobs, because they're both teaching in a sense. And me being with Speaking Your Brand and speaking, whether it's virtually like now or in person, it also benefits the university where I teach because it's and it keeps my skills fresh and I bring that knowledge back to my students. So it's really a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Can you explain, because there might be some listeners who don't know what a personal brand is?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I love that. Yes. Yes. So I know that, and some people may possibly take offense in being called a brand, because I know that there's a little, not controversy, but some people think, no, people aren't brands. That's where people, but each of us has a persona that we put out into the world that either connects with people or doesn't, but we're putting out all these signals through our speaking, like literally speaking to other people, or speaking on a stage, or just interacting with coworkers, or even if you're a mom and you're a stay-at-home mom, you don't work outside the home, you still have a personal brand. But we have this way that we present ourselves, and a brand is what other people decide it is. But you have an opportunity to influence what they think of the brand. So as people, if we are a professional at a job, or we own our own business, or we don't, you want people to perceive you a certain way, whether that be that you are someone who does triathlons and you're healthy and all that, or you're someone who has a business where you teach women how to deliver their keynote talk. You want to be putting certain things out into the world to be seen a certain way. And that's your personal brand. And by the way, a lot of people think that, oh, okay, so like I have this brand with my friends at home, and then I have a different brand at my job or in my business. No, it's all one. It's all one deal. It's not separated anymore. It might have been that way back in the day when your worlds didn't intermix and intertwine, but they do. And so a personal brand is the collection of everything that makes you who you are and how you position yourself out in the world. And it needs to be authentic, transparent. Doesn't mean you have to tell the world every single little detail unless you want to. But being transparent and putting some of who you are into your business is important to help attract the right people to you.
Exactly.
And your brand is how you make people feel. That personal human connection that you make with them, the emotional connection that you make with them. So it's less about like specifically what services you offer, and really about how you connect and how you make them feel.
Yeah. So very important. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about helping people with their LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn profile, but I don't use it as much as someone who's searching for a new career or a new position. And I could definitely see how being very clear on how you present yourself and how that's important in that aspect too.
Yes. And especially now that I'm working with women most of whom want to speak in some way, whether it be put on a webinar or be hired to do a workshop or speak on a stage, give a keynote, give a TEDx talk. It is extra important to have an optimized LinkedIn presence that positions you as a speaker. That's your personal brand. So unless you tell people you're a speaker, how are they going to know? And so I think it's important to whatever your job is, your business, your profession, I think even just to whether you want to bring in clients or you want to bring in new opportunities for a new job, or be seen as a thought leader in your space at your current job or your current business or industry, all of those things, for all of those reasons, people should work on their LinkedIn profiles, because
for sure.
It's getting searched. People are finding you.
Don't look at mine.
Okay. Go improve it and then I'll have a look.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I just think it's an opportunity LinkedIn used to be this platform that was like just for people looking for jobs, like an online resume, but it isn't that anymore. So much more. So I would encourage people to think about how you're coming across, and especially if you want to speak, which I think every woman should speak on somewhere.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Why do you feel that way?
Because we've been silenced for a long time in so many ways. I recently read a book called The Woman They Could Not Silence. And it's a true story of a woman in the 1800s who, Elizabeth, I can't remember her last name. She was basically put in an insane asylum, as were many women, against her will, because she would read books. And it's terrible and scandalous. And she would say something that went against what her husband said. So she would disagree with him. And she was basically deemed to be insane, put in an insane asylum, where the women in the insane asylum were, and the man running it was a doctor, not really a doctor. of any kind. They didn't even they didn't understand anything about psychology back then.
Right.
These women were abused and they had to go, they literally had everything taken away from them, their children, their belongings, they had nothing because women were basically property. They didn't, and once you got married, you ceased to exist as an individual, autonomous human being. Yeah. So women have been silenced, and lest we think that women don't get silenced anymore, we do in a whole host of other ways. So I think it's important for women to use their voices in whatever industry they're in. Again, whether you are a woman who does not work outside the home, or you have kids or you don't, or you work at a company or you have your own business, it's so important to understand how to use your voice. And even if that just means you understand how to ask for a raise, right? You understand how to speak up and ask for what you deserve, or you understand how to pitch yourself for speaking. But all of those reasons, women should be using their voices. And there's nothing makes me happier than seeing women own their power, use their voice, speak up, speak out, even when it ruffles feathers. And especially when it ruffles feathers.
I was going to say same thing, especially
ruffle those feathers.
Exactly. Ooh, I feel like we need to have you back and we can just talk about that because I feel like we could go on and on.
Yes. I highly recommend that book. I will say that at the beginning of that book, it's very depressing. And I wanted to throw the book out the window many times because it was just so infuriating. But once you get to the halfway point and you start to see how this woman overcame it, she actually ended up being able to get her children back and being able to run for office and being, she really did things for that time that were unheard of. And she was amazing. So if you do read it, stick with it. I promise it gets better.
Okay. I'm going to put that on my reading list.
Oh, it's a doozy. It is a doozy.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
Oh my goodness.
I don't expect you to know, but I just thought
I don't know. Maybe 2023 because I don't know. Like, let's be real.
This is
Does
true.
Anybody
know?
I would love to get back to in-person speaking because I, and as you can see, I don't mind speaking at all. I love it.
Yeah.
And I miss speaking in person. And actually I feel quite rusty at it. Because we haven't done it in so long. So I really would like to get back to that. So that's on my list.
Yeah, there's definitely an energy that you get from an audience or just the smiles or nods of heads. And it's so different being on the screen. It's great that we have the screen, but it is such a different energy. So I've experienced that the last couple of years in a training program that I help with. I get that.
I would imagine it's similar to filming a movie versus being in a play.
Oh, that's right.
Because in a play, you get the immediate feedback, whereas filming a movie, you're like, oh, I guess we did okay. Right? You don't know. Yeah, exactly. So it's a little bit the same. And I really miss that. And at some point, I would like to do a TED Talk. So that's on my bucket list. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Do they have TED Talk Orlando's?
They did. I don't know what's happened to them.
That's true.
Yeah. So I don't, I don't know if I don't know when those will come back. I'm assuming that at some point they will come back, but so.
Well, I'm going to be looking out for that.
Yes. Look for me.
I will, of course. We're going to meet for coffee anyway.
Oh, we are indeed. Yes,
definitely. I was wondering if you are ready for the Midlife hot flash.
I'm always having a hot flash. So that is a resounding yes.
So what this is 10 questions that are just rapid fire. They're supposed to be, but I always end up interrupting and we end up talking about things, but
that's fine too.
Okay. So they start off pretty easy. Question number 1 is tea or coffee?
That's so hard. I used to be a coffee addict and I still, because I love the whole ritual of coffee, I still drink decaf coffee because I don't have caffeine, but I'm going to have to go with tea because just tea is just cozy and relaxing. I like that.
I have noticed. Yeah. See, I've already stopped.
I know, oh my gosh.
I'm the same way. I've noticed a nice herbal tea in the evening. It's just, I don't know. I love having it. So,
yes,
okay.
Me too.
Number 2, favorite all-time band or musician?
Queen.
Nice. Yes.
Without a doubt.
Favorite dessert?
I'm just going to have to say anything with chocolate.
Mm.
And if it is paired with peanut butter, all the better.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love those. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I wanted to be a teacher. I always played school.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I always played school. And I also wanted to be a marine biologist.
You're from Florida, and that's just,
I know. What am I going to do?
That's what we do.
As soon as I realized I was not good at science, and I was like, okay, maybe a teacher then.
Your current self-indulgence.
I am binging Queer Eye right now on Netflix.
Aren't we all?
Oh, I'm so.
They're in Texas, which is where I moved
Fab
from.
Five.
Oh, yeah.
If listeners, if you do not watch Queer Eye, please, I beg of you, especially the current season that just came out on Netflix, because you will cry your eyes out. It is so touching.
That show is amazing.
I am fascinated and moved and flabbergasted, frankly, by how these 5 men are able to get, everybody that they work with on board with just loving themselves and also loving the Fab Five and just really tapping into all the feels. I know. I'm here for it.
It's amazing. It really is amazing.
So good.
I know it is so good. What is inspiring you right now? Maybe it's the Fab Five.
Them, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're always inspiring me. Honestly, I would say, if I might, the women that I work, because again, when we see these women that I either work with individually or they're in one of our group programs like Thought Leader Academy, when they come out of it, to see their confidence in their ability to use their voice, like to see that blossom, it just gives me life.
I love that. I love that. So imagine you're at a party. Remember when we used to have those?
Oh, what's that? In-person party.
Okay. And you're saying goodbye, and your best friend is there. And then she turns to somebody and says, "Do you know my Diane? Oh my gosh, she is so," what do you hope that she says about you?
I'm going to have to say the first thing I hope she says is that I'm funny, because I love to make people laugh, and also kind.
Yeah.
And supportive.
Those are 3 great things. And I already think that of you. And
thank you.
What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Oh boy. 20-year-old Diane was very stressed out and dealing with a lot of trauma and very scared of like trying to make a life that was better than how my mom had to live. But I would tell 20-year-old Diane that everything's going to be fine. Lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, nobody knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Isn't that the truth?
So
I still don't know what I'm doing.
No. So stop trying to figure everything out, because literally nobody knows.
Yeah. That's great advice. If you could be any animal for one day, what would you be and why?
That's easy. I would be my cat because this guy has the life.
He has a life. Yeah.
I told somebody that he is 100% trained assassin, 10% runway model. And I realize that's 110%, but he is extra. So
right. There we go.
and he's just got the life, this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen photos of him.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So what would you like to say to other women? This is actually our 10th question. What would you like to say to other women who are approaching midlife, in midlife, looking to try something new? What would you say to them?
I would encourage them to try something new, because that something new is probably the thing that is going to give you the confidence and the belief in yourself that you can do new things. You can do hard things. You can endure many things. You can design the life that you want to have. So I would say life in midlife, the water is fine. It's warm. Come on over here.
I can even swim in it.
Oh, you can swim in it.
Yeah.
You won't drown.
Won't drown.
And you won't care. And you won't care what anybody thinks about how you look in that swimsuit.
I love it.
It's wonderful.
I love it. That's great advice. Diane, it's been so great to have you on the show, and just thank you for spending some time with us today. And I can't wait for us to have coffee.
Oh, me too. It has been such a pleasure, Liz. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed chatting with you, and I can't wait for coffee.
I know. It'd be great. I really hope this episode encourages you to get out of your comfort zone, to begin, to start, to learn something new, to be willing to be a beginner again. And I'd really love to hear what that something is. Head over to Instagram at Liz Applegate. Look for this episode post and let me know. I'd love to cheer you on. Now, our next episode is going to be with Kirsten Martin. She is a Squarespace expert, and now Kirsten's story is just the epitome of midlife schmidlife, because she did not become a website designer until she turned 50. So be sure to tune in to the next episode of Midlife Schmidlife as we close out our series of how they got started.